going into year 2, it shouldn't be hard to improve from our 32nd ranked team. It can't get worse. First thing to do is our retirement. So we do have 2 players who are considering retiring. Josh Norman, no, not that Norman. He's the lowest overall player we have at tight end. He played in 4 games last season when Antonio Gates went down, but didn't do anything. I'm not going to bring him back. The other player was Steve Foley, and I was surprised he wanted to retire. He's not particularly old, and he had an okay season last year. Tried to talk him out of it. He really didn't want to come back. Looks like both Norman and Foley will retire from the NFL. On to the re-signings. We only had 4 players on expired contracts, and 2 of them were trades that we made from last season, Smith and Harris. My biggest issue with the running backs group is that we have too many. I thought Lamar Smith was going to retire. He did better than anyone else we have behind him, unfortunately. So going into his 13th year, I'm going to bring him back on a 2-year contract. Hopefully that's enough time to find a replacement. Justin Peele needed a new contract. Antonio Gates was injured last year, and Peele was a solid replacement. I wanted to bring him back until I saw he wanted a 7-year contract. He's not coming back. Al Harris is next up to resign. He is up there in age, and we have some younger players behind him. I have high hopes for Sammy Davis. He did end up getting injured last year, while Drayden Florence was a solid returner. I also think he can become a great corner. Al Harris didn't really do as much as I had hoped he'd do, especially compared to Quentin Jammer. After thinking it over, I wanted to bring him back on a cheap contract, but he also wanted a 7-year deal. He's not coming back. The last player to resign was Jerry Wilson. He was able to intercept the ball twice, but his age being what it is, along with Gabriel Wilson being just as good and younger, he became expendable. He's not coming back. Now is the free agency. There are some big names in here like Julian Peterson, D. Mullen, and Kevin Dyson. I was debating between bringing Dyson back or getting Galloway after I realized Dyson wanted a $3 million a year contract. I jumped over to Galloway hoping to sign him for a $2 million 1-year contract. I also gave Tommy Poley a contract offer to try and replace Foley, who retired this offseason. I wasn't quite done yet. I also gave Ken Lucas an offer to replace Al Harris. Galloway ended up getting a higher offer from Oakland. To be honest, I just gave him a counter offer so that the Raiders wouldn't get him. Galloway was pretty good this past season. Was he a number 1 guy? No, but a solid number 2. His numbers were very similar to Tim Dwight. Tommy Poley, on the other hand, would be a huge upgrade. He had a good season. Hopefully we can sign him. While Ken Lucas wasn't great, but maybe he just needs a change in scenery. Unfortunately, that change won't be in San Diego, which is fine. We have options in free agency. One option was Andre Dyson, which I gave an offer to. I also had a bidding war for Joey Galloway still. I will say the corner stat productions don't give a good picture of how good they can be. After 3 days, we missed out on Galloway. I wasn't feeling too positive about Poley, so I gave Aiken Adele an offer. That's a productive season. To be fair, any linebacker at this point would be an upgrade. I also gave Burris an offer. It didn't look like Dyson was going to sign. This was just to get some veteran experience on the team. It didn't really matter because Poley didn't sign with us, Adele didn't sign with us, Lucas didn't sign with us, Dyson didn't sign with us, Burris didn't sign with us. No one signed with us. Well, at least in the draft, they have to come to us. They also have to sign the contract. Damn it. Well, on the bright side, our only goal is to win 3 games this season, and that might actually be a high bar for us. Now, typically, I don't do the combine, but since I have the first overall pick, I wanted to make sure I drafted the right guy. It was between a quarterback or a tackle. There were actually 2 tackles that were interesting me, Warren and Pratt. While most mock drafts have us picking Sparks, I scouted those 3 players. It's still going to be a tough decision, but it's an easier one since I dropped Warren from consideration. Do I draft a franchise quarterback or a franchise tackle? We saw how Rivers did on the team. There aren't enough pieces around any quarterback for them to succeed here. I went for Terrence Pratt. Now, this is a guy, the kind of guy you want blocking the blind side of your quarterback. I'm sure people will debate if we should have gone for Peter Sparks, who went to Detroit. Only time will tell if we chose correctly. In the 2nd round, we went cornerback Roger Clark. Al Harris is gone, and we couldn't find anyone to replace replace him in free agency, but we got a nice consolation prize in Clark. With our first third round pick, I went tight end Kenneth McBride. He's a decent blocker who can catch well. He'll be sitting behind Gates, but he's a great replacement for Peel, who we lost this offseason. Our second third round pick that we got trading Lassiter to the Saints was used on a free safety, Herbert Williams. Lassiter retired this past offseason. If Williams can develop past 80 overall, I think we won this trade. Our third round pick that we got from trading Dyson to the Eagles was used on a receiver, Adrian Woods. I think he has the skill set. If it works out, then I think we won this trade, but for right now I think it's a tie, considering they let Dyson walk after the season. Our last third round pick comes from the Green Bay Packers. We selected an outside linebacker. Jimmy Henderson will be replacing Foley, and to be honest, I think right now the Packers fleeced us. If Henderson works out, then it's a tie at best. We didn't have a fourth round pick, traded it to the Packers, but in the fifth round we got a steal in Ralph Wells. He's going to sit his first year or two, but I have no doubt he's going to be a solid starter soon. I think we also got another steal in the sixth round going quarterback. Phillip Fields may just be okay in his attributes, but I think sitting him for a few years to develop and improve his trade value, who knows, maybe he'll be a starter if Rivers doesn't work out. Our final draft pick went defensive tackle. Jonathan Sandoval is a pretty strong nose tackle. He needs to work on his other abilities, but I can see him sitting behind Olshansky as good depth. With the draft over, we need to get to 54 players before the regular season. One of the moves will be releasing Jesse Chapman. He didn't get too much playing time last year, but when he did, he just wasn't good. Another player I'm releasing is Spearman. He was from the Packers trade. Yeah, we did bad. With the drafting of Wells, I want to move on from Hardwick since he's now third on the depth chart. I ended up trading him to the Steelers for a third round pick. Not bad considering before I got here, that's what round the Chargers drafted him in. Still not done with the roster movements. I released Ryan Krause. He did nothing with the team last season. This might be a terrible move on my part, but I wanted to trade open. He's old, but he's also our second best tackle. I sent him and a fifth round pick to Miami for a second round pick. Still not done yet. I feel confident in Sandoval being Olshansky's backup going into the season since we run a 3-4 defense. I'm trading Fisk. I sent him to the Browns for a third round pick. Last season we went 1-3 in the preseason. This year 0-4. We'll see how the season goes. We did have some injuries. Florent will miss the first 2 weeks, and the rookie Woods will be out for 5 games. It's a rough start for the kid's career. I didn't talk about this, but Flutie didn't retire. He also outperformed Rivers in the preseason, while Breeze was just flat out bad. Since we have 4 quarterbacks on the team, I decided to trade Drew Brees. Phillip Fields turned out to be better than I thought he was going to be after Drew Brees' lackluster season last year and his pitiful performance this preseason. I ended up trading him to Arizona with a 4th round pick for Brian Gilmore and a 2nd round pick. Remember, Woods is injured, so Gilmore provides some depth, and I'm looking to move on from Caldwell after this season. Gilmore had a decent season last year. He's not going to scare anyone though, while Breeze will be the starter for Arizona this season. We don't have the highest expectations since we were ranked 32nd, so can we finish higher? LT will continue to be the best player on the team for a 2nd straight year. I'll be honest, this team looks much worse on paper than it did last year, though to be fair, I traded away 2 of the top players we had last season. The quarterback room has arguably gotten worse in sense of overall, but since I've decided that we're sticking with Rivers, it doesn't really matter. Plus, we went 2-14 with the team. I don't think it all falls on the quarterbacks. The running back room has changed a lot since the start of last season. We did trade for Lamar Smith mid-season. Smith has regressed, but LT is still the guy this team revolves around. Lorenzo Neal is in the twilight of his career. Regression was bound to happen, but he's still pretty good. Now, the receiving group is interesting. Adrian Woods is injured, but there could be an argument to be made that this group is on par from the group from last season. It's not like Kevin Dyson was a stud, plus Tim Dwight has improved since last year. There's no doubt here that the tight ends are much better this season. Gates will be the starter, but I imagine imagine McBride will probably take his job if he doesn't improve. Earlier, I traded Nick Hardwick away, and you can see why. Wells has improved a lot, but he's still going to sit this season. Another position that I think has improved a lot over last year. We're still very similar at guard, and it hasn't improved much other than the added depth with Ledford. This might be a position that we'll need to look at in the offseason if these players don't improve. The tackle position has been improved. We still don't have a solid second tackle, but I figure this year give Olivier another year to improve. He did jump up 5 points. Let's see if he can do it again after this season. I think it's fair to say that the defensive tackle position has taken a step back, but for a good reason. We're letting the younger guys take over. Olshansky is slowly becoming the leader on the line, while Sandoval will be a solid player behind him. The defensive end position is another group where I'm not quite sure if it really improved, different players, but the team kind of just moved laterally. Sean Phillips didn't really explode like I thought he would. He'll still be the starter going into the year with Scott, but I'm a bit disappointed. Outside linebacker is a improved position going into the year. I thought the loss of Foley would hurt the team, but with Henderson improving so much, we actually have a better position now. One position that has not changed at all in personnel, inside linebacker. Unfortunately, everyone has regressed, so this is going to be a position that we have to address this offseason. One of the positions that was probably the worst last year, the cornerbacks group. I'm not sure it's much better, but I do think it is better. With Roger Clark leading the group, Jammer regressed a bit. A surprise in house making a drastic improvement, but one guy I had high hopes for, and Sammy Davis, regressed hard, probably because of his injury, while Florence is out with an injury for a few weeks. At strong safety, I was hoping that Terrence Keel was going to get an improvement, but he's still the same overall as last year. The position is basically the same. While at free safety, this position has completely changed from last season. Lassiter did retire in the offseason, but we'll see if there's an improvement next year, as Williams is a rookie taking over the spot this season. While Nate Kading, the kicker, didn't improve. The punter, Mike Cyphers, did improve. Before we start the regular season, I wanted to show that Galloway was in free agency after an injury. Remember, I tried to sign him in the offseason. I also thought about bringing Dyson back, who went to Cincinnati. Since we're checking out players who we traded, Jamar Fletcher regressed. Looks like the trade might have gone our way after all. I didn't want to sign Galloway, but I had to release a player, and Greg Lewis was the unlucky guy. He didn't really do anything with us last year, but for some reason, it made me sad to let him go. So I went ahead and signed Galloway to an offer he pretty much wanted in free agency. It took an injury, but we finally got our guy. He's going to be out for 3 weeks, which isn't too bad. We have our season opener against the Houston Texans, and you'd be surprised how it ends. Here's the fourth quarter. The Chargers went for it twice on 4th down in the final minute of the game and failed when they could have easily tied the game. That's how poorly this offense has performed. Remember when I was talking about how much of a surprise House was? Well, he got injured. Week 2 and we take on Washington, and it looks like week 2 might be our lucky week. I believe that's the second time we've won during that week. This is also the most points we've ever scored, considering last year it was a struggle just to get 2 touchdowns, let alone 4. Can we keep the win streak going against the winless Titans? We have our first winning streak, folks. The Chargers were up 31-7 halfway through the 4th quarter. Do we have a good team? Just in time too, since we're getting Galloway and Florence back next week, but a big blow to the defense as Scott will be out for the rest of the season. Florence isn't as good as I hoped he'd be, but I'm still sure he'd be a great returner, while Galloway instantly becomes our best receiver. We should be undefeated right now, taking on a undefeated Indianapolis Colts. You know, maybe we're not good, but maybe we're not bad. It's nice seeing LT being used more this season, over 200 all-purpose yards this game. We're now on to the winless Dallas Cowboys.
Roy Williams is in coverage as the other team backed inside their own red zone. It's picked, the overthrow, and it's going to backfire. touchdown. Nice play, Johnny.
Okay, so I went from maybe we're good to maybe we're just not bad to what the heck are we? Rivers is not great. I'm going to continue with them at 2-3. I still feel like we can make a strong run to get back into the playoff conversation. And through 5 games this year, Rivers has been on par to his previous season, maybe slightly better. That's why I'm not going to take him out. The past 2 weeks, this defense has been gouged in the running game, and I think it's because of the defensive ends. Originally, I went to free agency to look for a good run stuffer. The best I found was Eric Flowers. Then I went looking around the NFL and I found James Hall. He is a good stuffer, the kind of guy you bring home on Thanksgiving. So I made a trade with Detroit, Leverett, and next year's 4th round pick for James Hall. Through 4 games this year, he hasn't done much, but I trust he'd make an impact on this team. I'm really determined to see Sean Phillips progress. He's a solid player, and I think James Hall lets me move on from Scott since he's in the final year of his contract, while Leverett will be in Detroit starting over there. We're now on to week 6. Have we improved since our last meeting against KC? I have nothing to say other than Phillip Rivers has been terrible recently. What happened to the Rivers that got us those 2 wins? We're now 2-4 on the year, playoffs are slipping away, and I'm starting Flutie in desperation. To make matters worse, Donnie Edwards will miss a month due to injury. Flutie had a week to prepare for the Denver Broncos to keep our playoff hopes alive. Can he do it? I should have just kept Rivers. At this point, playoffs are gone. I might as well let Rivers play a few more games, then put in the rookie the final month of the year. We now have Dwight and Henderson on the injury report. This is ridiculous. Once we finish this game, we'll be at the midway point of the season taking on the Jaguars. Despite how hard Phillip Rivers tried to give this game away, the Chargers won. The rookie Adrian Woods had his welcome to the NFL game. All eyes will be on him in the future. We're now 3-5 on the year, ranked 26th in the NFL. So far, we're already better than we were last season. No matter what, this was a successful season. And we're only halfway done. If we win this week against the Raiders, we'll technically be a game behind if Kansas City loses. Playoffs are not out of the question yet. There is something going on with Phillip Rivers. Once again, he can't get it done in the 4th quarter. I'm starting to think he doesn't have the clutch gene. Our playoff hopes are dwindling. Going into week 11, the injury list is getting long again. This week we take on the New York Giants. Phillip Rivers had a long drive to tie the game in the fourth quarter, but when the team needed him to do something, he couldn't deliver. We're now 3-7 on the year. A rematch against the Chiefs is next. Last time Rivers wasn't able to do anything. Can he perform better second time around? I don't blame the game entirely on Kading missing the kick, but you shouldn't be missing easy kicks like that. The defense stopped the Chiefs to 12 points. Chargers only managed 7. Who's the problem here? With our playoff hopes pretty much gone, can Rivers keep the team from going over 8 losses against the 1-loss Ravens?
Jamal Lewis would certainly like to help his team get into the end zone. And he's set 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage now. Looks to bounce outside. Does so. Gets a block. Touchdown. 10 yards.
Rivers continues to make mistakes at the worst possible time. We're going to finish with our second losing season. 4 games left to go. We've let so many games slip through our fingers. There's only one thing left to do. Bench Rivers and start Fields. What's the worst that can happen? The 6th round pick will start against the Oakland Raiders. What a better team to start against. Even the final 3 games of the year look like a good test to see how good he is. So, Fields destroyed the Raiders. LT went off and defense was stout. Was Rivers the problem? This will be a good test. A potential playoff caliber team in the Eagles.
Donovan McNabb calling signals at his own 40-yard line. Rolls, then fires a slant. Look at him go. He could go all the way. 60 yards.
I'm hard pressed to say that Fields doesn't have a clutch gene, considering he put up 28 points, threw for over 300 yards, and had 3 touchdowns. The kid did his best, but we were just asking too much out of him. Another good test against the Denver Broncos. We got blown out last time. To be fair, Rivers wasn't playing. Let's see if they did better. Once again, the play calling leaves a lot to be desired, keeping it in the hands of the rookie instead of running the ball. Missed opportunity for a field goal, turned it over while driving, then stalling out. Fields couldn't get it done at the end. Final game of the year will be against the New York Jets. The Chargers snuck away with the win, but I noticed the score went 31-28, 21-17. Clearly, the offense began to lose its steam and defenses were figuring this kid out. You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at Phillip Fields and you look at Phillip Rivers and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one for the starting position, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. but Fields is a genetic freak, and that's not normal. So, you got a 25% chance at best to beat Fields, and then you add Doug Flutie to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. You see, the three-way at quarterback position, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning, but Fields got a 66 2/3 chance of winning because Doug Flutie knows he can't beat him, and he's not even gonna try. So Phillip Rivers, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus Fields' 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning the starting position. But then you take Fields' 75% chance of winning if it goes 1-on-1, then add the 66 2/3% chance, and he got a 141 2/3 chance of winning. See, Rivers, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you in the NFL. See, I'm gonna break it down for you viewers. Would you rather see Fields start, or would you rather see Rivers start next year? LT had a down year if you're looking at just his rushing numbers, but boy did he improve as a receiver. He was our best receiver on the team, receptions, yards, and touchdowns, over 2,000 all-purpose yards. This is what I expected out of him. Lamar Smith improved this season. He became a much better runner and catcher. Problem is, they're still using him like LT, and he's no LT. He's more of a third and short runner. As you can see, Tomlinson led all receivers. I wasn't lying. Tim Dwight led the receiving group. Not as good as last year, but I don't think he was used as much as he was last year. Adrian Woods, on the other hand, had come a long way since the draft, and I'm very happy with his progress. He's going to be the future of this position. Joey Galloway is the old man in the group, but it doesn't mean he still can't keep up with the younger players. Was he great? No, but we don't need him to be. I'm upset with Bernard Berrien. I understand that he's 4th on the depth chart, but I just expected more out of him. Antonio Gates is another person I'm disappointed in. We clearly don't use our tight ends. That or his skill set just doesn't match what this team wants. Rashae Caldwell didn't play much this season, but he did do okay. A surprise was Eric Parker not doing anything at all. I'm sure any team would be happy to use him though. He's a big play player. On the defensive side, the stats look so much better than last year. Terrence Keel led the team in tackles this season, pretty much on par with last year in terms of impact. Randall Godfrey led the team last season, but this year comes in second. He was also on par with how much of an impact he had from the previous year. Ben Leber was probably our most improved player on defense in terms of stats, more sacks, and interceptions. I think he solidified his position on the team. Roger Clark is what I wanted Quentin Jammer to be. I'm glad he was able to show his ability this season. The secondary is going to be scary if he improves. I know his tackles were low, but look at the assisted tackles. This tells me he was helping on almost every play. Jonathan Sandoval, the 7th round pick, got 7 sacks, led the team. I think we found the jam, boys. James Hall, who we got in a trade from Detroit midseason, got 5 sacks in 11 games. I'm liking how this team is coming together so far. Igor Oshansky was on par with his previous season, and that's not a bad thing. I think we have at least 3 or 4 defensive linemen set for next year. I think this team secretly runs a 4-3 defense. It says 3-4 in the game plan, but it makes sense since Edwards hardly got any play time and Sandoval had a lot of plays. I'm going to say it right now, I think the trade with the Packers that got us Jimmy Henderson actually worked out. This team is coming together. Herbert Williams is the other 3rd round pick we got in a trade with the Saints. He's looking pretty good too. I think we know what we have in Jammer. He's not the guy, but he's good enough until you find someone better. Honorable mention, Gabriel Wilson had an interception. I had such high hopes for him too. Nate Kading missed some chip shots this year, but at the end of the season, he did make 5 of 7 in the 40s, and as much as I hate to say it, I think he's improved. Mike Cyphers had less punts this year, which meant we did more on offense. Solid season. We did have a kick return for a touchdown from Dwight, while Florence had a punt return for a touchdown. Special teams are important. Real quick, McBride, my original 3rd round pick, did nothing. No playtime for him. LT also made the Pro Bowl this season, which is awesome, our first Pro Bowler. Now the yearly awards are here, and the MVP was Donovan McNabb. Not a bad season, but I'd argue that Steve McNair, the Offensive Player of the Year, could have won it. Heck, Josh McCown could have won it, or even John Kitna. I hate Tom Brady, and there's an argument that he could have won it. Eli Manning also had a decent season. Might as well throw in Trent Green in the conversation. The Defensive Player of the Year was Adam Archuleta. The Offensive Rookie of the Year, Daniel Ferguson. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Guy Boone. Heck of a name. Now before we go to the postseason, Drew Brees had a pretty good season. Should I regret trading him? I don't think so, since Sean King, who was the backup, did even better. I just think they have a more explosive offense. And Jason Fisk had a pretty on-par season. Sandoval was the better outcome for us. We're in the wild card. Denver and Kansas City play each other, and I hope they both lose. I'm actually surprised. Denver was the only away team to win. We almost beat Baltimore and the Giants. We also lost to the Colts. I kind of want those three teams to win because then it makes our losses not look that bad. Well, I don't know why I speak. I don't want Denver to win. I also hate New England, so looks like it's going to be a Super Bowl prequel. The Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. This one looks like a good one. I bet you New England won because Seattle refused to run the ball on the goal line. And that is it for the season. Finished 5-11, good season compared to last year. I did forget to look at the team stats, so unfortunately I can't compare it, but I do expect next season to be a serious playoff push. If you enjoyed this, be sure to watch the next one to see if we can at least get a winning season.